good morning, and welcome to Voices for today, July 15th, Wednesday, July 15th. I'm your host, Jermine Abel, sitting in today. Today, we're going to look at the reopening of the borders again and several developments that arose coming out of what we've seen in the region when it comes to the borders reopening. And how can we apply those initiatives, ideas to prevent what is happening across the region happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis? We're going to hear a bit of the concern that we've been seeing arising of fraudulent documents being presented in the Bahamas, as well as visitors and returning nationals in some parts of the region not adhering to self-quarantine protocols. But before we even jump into any of those discussions, we have to acknowledge our partner, Rams, who make the first half of the program possible. Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to Voices here on Win FM. Like I said, we're going to revisit the reopening of the borders in St. Kitts and Nevis as well as throughout the region. I know we were discussing that a bit yesterday, but there's some concerns being expressed in the Bahamas because that territory has opened its borders for quite some time. Jamaica has done the same, but overnight, the deputy CMO in the Bahamas has raised concern that they've seen incoming passengers have been presenting fraudulent certificates saying that they're negative. They picked up on that, if not yesterday, the day before, which would have been Monday. And and it's a concern she expressed that is something that they're now going to be tracking feverishly because they've been seeing cases consistently popping up on the island. And, you ask yourself, well, if these people tested negative when they came in and they have a certificate that says that is the case, then, why is that happening? So they would have found that. And it's something that they're looking into now. From our perspective, we did reach out to the chief medical officer in terms of getting a perspective from her, but currently she's in a meeting, so she wouldn't be available probably up until midday to discuss that matter in terms of reopening protocols and so forth. But let us quickly hear from our colleagues at Eyewitness News in terms of the concern that was expressed by the Deputy Chief Medical Officer concerning the fraudulent documents that are being presented. This is a combination of fraudulent and additional cases that they would have heard, they would have detected overnight. That would have been on Tuesday. It is Wednesday, yeah, on Tuesday. And we go to that report right now.
3 additional cases of COVID-19 have been recorded, bringing the total now to 116. 2 additional cases in Grand Bahama and a new case here in the capital. Health officials also now confirming an outbreak in the nation's second city. That's sparking alarm tonight with an aggressive contact tracing exercise now underway to curb the spread. And while the most recent cases are those with travel history, health officials are saying that government has changed the timing for test results to help mitigate further spread. Our Matthew Moxie, who is following this for us, joins me now live in studio with the latest. Matthew?
Kendino, now the big question is, could this be the beginning of a resurgence of cases? This as some of the new cases since the borders reopening are said to have a travel-related history. Health officials tonight are saying they are expecting more cases to emerge stemming from the newly confirmed cases.
We can confirm 3 new cases of COVID-19.
A new outbreak of the coronavirus in the Bahamas prompting changes to government protocol. This as medical consultant in the office of the Prime Minister, Dr. Merceline Dalregis, says all returning citizens and residents will now have to present a negative COVID-19 test regardless of the amount of time they have been abroad.
Bahamians and residents traveling for a period of 72 hours or less will be required to quarantine for 14 days unless they produce a COVID-19 RT-PCR test with a negative result upon arrival.
And although the government has ordered that all incoming passengers possess a valid negative COVID-19 test within 7 to 10 days of their return date, Dr. Dalregis revealing that some incoming passengers on New Providence and Grand Bahama have tried to deceive health officials.
Government officials are on high alert for cases of suspected forgery, tampering or altering of required documents, and are prepared to take action if necessary.
Many have criticized the 10-day valid window government has afforded to COVID-19 testing, but Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. Delon Brennan says it's a challenge to tighten that window, as he says they are balancing both the health and economics of the nation.
Regardless of whether you're in less than 72 hours or more than 72 hours, we have to mandate that if you have not had testing done, that you go into quarantine at that point. So we're balancing the ability for Bahamians to return home against the issue of public health, and the way to make sure that we protect the public's health as much as possible is to ensure that everyone who's coming home that has not had a test done goes into quarantine, and then once quarantine is entered into, we can then approach the issue of testing being done thereafter.
Now, there have been many calls for mass testing, but to date, the Bahamas, with a population of about 400,000, has only tested just over 2,500 individuals. But health officials previously stating they are being responsible with their test stock. Kendino?
Well, there you had it. There you had it. That was one concern being expressed in the Bahamas. And it's something that's going to be of a concern as we seek to reopen borders here in St. Kitts and Nevis. How do we protect against those persons who are going to be trying to deceive health officials? Because that's something that will be mandatory. You have to travel with documents to show that you were actually tested from where you depart, as well as the negative test. And we go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning. Cause to give my 2 cents in that situation. Everything is about money, right? As simple as you see the doctor then work with money too. You can be sick and the doctor write up something saying you is not sick just for the money. There is a problem in that, and that's going to be hard to solve. So it's just that the doctor them got a chance to make more money now. Some of them ain't going to be honest with their work. Because people need to travel, and some of them have money, and they're going to pay the money just to get out. Simple. That's how I see it.
But Carlo, don't you think the U.S. would have more of a stricter stipulations in terms of what facility can give an approved test?
Can I give an approved test?
Can give an approved test and give you a document to say that you're okay, you're tested negative.
Yeah, well, that was saying. Say it again?
Well, what I'm basically saying is, you would expect the United States, the quote-unquote great United States, to have systems in place that something like this cannot happen. You know, you cannot present a tampered document or something that is fraudulent. You would expect that coming from the United States.
Yes, I understand, but ain't everybody gonna come from the US. You got different parts of the world people coming from. And it must go a slip within the loop. It must have a slip within the loop. You should know that also. 'Cause it happen everywhere, even in this local economy still. You can go doctor, pay a doctor, and you get your thing to the shoot. But nobody gonna know, but you and the doctor. Just a way of getting things go through a little faster.
And
it does happen.
And that is something that's going to be of a major concern going forward, not only for St. Kitts and Nevis, but everybody, because...
Everybody, because people need to travel and people need to get out. You got a lot of people in America, especially, need to get to these Caribbean islands because if you don't have the safer place, you only have the safer water, you only have the safer bush, the safer air, the better atmosphere. So they need Caribbean to be full of people. You know what I mean? They might even take off people off the road and marry them because they need to stay down here right now. They don't understand the world. The Caribbean is the best. People gonna come home, go live now, and then just go out there to do the shopping and stay home. You understand?
That's true. But it's also going to be another issue when we are traveling throughout the region, because if we're having those slips through the crack, and some of the islands, will have some of that as well, it's also going to be a problem, because some islands are not going to, because they're creating a bubble right now, really, and we're going to hear that from Dr. Gonzalez.
It is a bubble. It's done a bubble.
Right, because
what happened to when we down here clean? So I ain't scanning nobody, but what I say now, we down here do not have the corona, right? And we're traveling out there now, mingling up with people because we have to mingle no matter what. You have to do your shopping, etc. You understand? We might, I want to might come on the plane now negative, but when they reach here, they're positive. So it's a tricky thing, and it's still, you just got to be careful of yourself. And as they say, stay clean, take your vitamin, keep your immune system clean, because the sickness is out there and the sickness is alive. Anyway, I'll give somebody a little turn to call you. Give thanks, right?
Thanks. Thanks, caller.
All the best. Yeah.
That was our first caller for today. Like I said, we have to reopen at some point in time, and this is something that the authorities will have to be wary of as they begin the process of reopening the borders, whether it be to regional travelers or those internationally. And like I said, we did reach out for a comment, but the CMO wasn't available right now. When we come back on the other side of the break, you can also call and share your thoughts on this topic or anything of interest to you. We'll hear about initiatives being taken, and it's another area of concern, something that we had that was raised here in St. Kitts and Nevis about people, those who are breaching quarantine, as well as, okay, we have another caller. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Abel. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm here giving God thanks, man, for another day. Every time the rain falls, I thank you, Jesus, because all I was hearing was drought, drought and fires,
Mm-hmm.
And the farmers were exasperated, putting in crops in the ground, and all they had was dry ground. So I hope the farmers are also giving thanks, and the livestock farmers, or like Mr. Politics, was concerned about his animals, and the availability of water. So I want to give God thanks for the rain. And when I praise the Lord, we need rain, we don't need floods. Now, I expected you to be playing. Last night there was this thing about, what do they call it? Leadership, something.
Leadership matters?
Yeah, the whole issue was discussed. So I expected you to play an excerpt from it, because Dr. Wilkinson was outlining something. Didn't you hear it? Obviously not. Because I was surprised that you said you were calling the CMO when Dr. Wilkinson went through. They were giving the requirements and stuff like that.
Yes. Don't get me wrong. It's a requirement. Right, but I was getting the CMO on that and another topic. That's why I specifically called her. But continue.
Yeah, 'cause they even said they plan to do like Jamaica, use the app,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And they still have a lot. They still have a lot more planning to do. Now, I expected, now in America, because I was surprised that you made a statement like, no, in a big country like America. Man, that is the homeland for fraud. I expected people to show up here with fraudulent certificates. You know, graphics, you know, if you know computer graphics,
Mm-hmm.
almost anybody, school children could make a certificate. What they need to do is to, when they present them, they should have some way of trying to confirm it by contacting the lab that did the test. And I heard, I think it was on your station, they were talking about, yeah, it was on your station, it was news about Bahamas, where they were saying that it is now difficult for persons traveling to get the certificates within this stated time period, because as the number of testing have stepped up in Florida, it is taking longer to for people to get their certificates for the test they took within the stipulated time. And I was wondering, I suppose today I was here, the status of the students who came from Cuba. I heard somebody say that they were released today. Have you heard so?
Well, we haven't gotten that information.
Yesterday? I heard one of the parents say it this morning on ZIZ.
Mm.
He has a daughter. He said that the students were rejoicing with their families. But I was expecting to hear that in the news, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so people would know. Because I myself was saying, I wonder if we are also having this this bottleneck when you have so many tests to do, and you have one lab. And I don't think that's.
I don't think. Just to interject there, I don't think it's so much of a bottleneck. I think that what is happening is why there was that delay in announcing results when we had the lockdowns and so forth was, and it was explained that there was a two-pronged approach.
No. Talking about no. You used to go to Trinidad.
Yeah, because here.
I get the impression that it is not going to Trinidad anymore.
No, it's not going to Trinidad.
Right.
So as soon as they come, they take the samples there, and I am of the opinion that they're going to do the tests, just focus on these students right now, and that's about it. So within a few days, you get it.
I think they work out the correlation already.
Mm-hmm. But that's how it worked here. Before they sent it off to Trinidad, you do the test here, and then they send it to Trinidad for a second confirmation.
I think parents were expecting the children to come out by Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Monday because they would have come in on a Saturday, right?
Yes, I think so.
Right. So they were got to say 14 days and then the test.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were expecting them to come out on a Monday, and that began to raise some things in people's mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were to come out Monday, they haven't come out Monday, are they negative, are they positive? You know, so. Anyway, I am happy for the parents, but I expected it. I don't know why you were surprised and, a big country like America? Man, that is the homeland. That is the homeland for it. So, that's why I am happy that most countries are saying, you bring it, and when you come, just like the students we have here, when you come, we test you for ourselves. And then we test you again. So, see, it makes sense? What do you say?
Yeah, it does make sense.
It makes sense now, because if you're spotting people coming up with fraudulent, people have come here with fraudulent CVQ, you know. They get some graphic person make a CVQ certificate for them, and when they check, the people didn't even do any examination. The only thing is that they're not charging anybody. But if they were to charge you for fraud,
I think a few people were charged for fraud, but not for CVQs. I think for
Declaration.
not declaration, but those who came in with fraudulent
Documents.
skilled certificates. Yeah,
Yes,
I
it
did.
was.
Yes, it's a couple of years ago. That's why they're
Just
so
the other
skeptical
day.
with them.
Just the other day, I think they said there were 2 Jamaicans or some Jamaicans.
Yes.
So all the government has to do is stick to its plan. You get it before you come, and when you come, we test you.
Mm-hmm.
So, because Bahamas saying, how could you have come with the certificate? And now, in less than 7 days, it meant that you should have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I am begging our people, please try and be honest. Because as they said in the Bahamas, your dishonesty put other people's life at risk.
Yep.
Because in some countries, once you show your certificate, they allow you to pass, to go home.
Yes.
They're now saying everybody got a quarantine. So the ill deeds of some one or two have made it difficult for other people. So those of you who are anxious to come home, please do the right thing. All right, then.
All right, thanks. And thanks that we thank that caller there. I will acknowledge our partner Rams, and then we'll come right back and go to the phone lines.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Me clothes and me looking well dapper. Stepping out tonight with Ramona and Sasha. Run to the fridge for me secret trek. 2 buckle of Magnum, now everything's set. You don't know, one girl can't manage me when me under me Magnum, all 2 or 3. Mickey a buckle to me, granddaddy, cause later on tonight he might expect a lady. You want the energy for do the things that you do. Drop for the Magnum with the vigor and do. Ladies, give you the vibe, big more quick, and all them on them. Yeah, that's strong extra lift. Magnum tonic wine, energy when you need it.
Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/ramsupermarket. Follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/ramsupermarket. And subscribe to us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/ramsupermarket.
And we're back with voices, and we go straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm listening, right, and I'm here thinking to myself, I wonder if anyone recognized the signs of the New World Order that is taking place. I mean, my God-fearing people should recognize the signs. You see those countries that we used to criticize and call them dictatorship country and stuff? Hello, Satan is ready to sit on his throne because he's waiting patiently. He's big and he's grown, and he's just waiting patiently to sit on this earthly throne. And he's getting tired. He's ready to sit now. And if you look at the New World Order, what we're facing now, he's getting ready to sit down. So people, all this thing where you see what's going on, and a lot of people going to call in and they're going to bash because a lot of people don't like to hear about God. And as the Jamaican who said, I've been hearing about Christ coming back from the eye at their knee. But there's a time for everything. And the same thing they did with Noah, the last after him, is the same thing we're doing today. But look at the New World Order. Government control is what is lining up right now all around the world. Government control, even in the little island. Look at what. Get it together, people. Get it together. Jesus is on his way back. The church is getting ready to leave. The New World Order is getting ready. He's setting up. The devil is ready to sit on his throne. You have a good day.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, she's sharing her views there. Just a quick note. Just as we go down together, just quickly, the never-ending elections from March 2nd has taken another turn. The matter has gone to court now. And as we speak right now, a challenge is being brought in the High Court, and the hearing is on right now. But just a thing to note, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has just issued a statement, and he's issued visa sanctions on the Granger administration and several of the persons whom he described as undermining democracy down in Guyana. So that is some of what has been going on. He said, and I quote, Today I am announcing visa restrictions on individuals responsible for or complicit in undermining democracy in Guyana. Immediate family members of such persons may also be subject to such restrictions. The Granger government must respect the result of democratic elections and step aside. It's now been 4 months since Guyana's elections is long past due for a peaceful transition. CARICOM and the Organization of American States has certified the recount results and should get on with it, Pompeo said. So that is some of what, some of the latest news with regards to what's happening in Guyana and the latest in that as I keep describing it, that never-ending elections process. And at this point, we'll go back to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Caller, good morning. Caller, good morning.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Greetings.
Morning.
Greetings, sir. Good morning to you. I have a question concerning the COVID discussion. Yeah?
Go ahead, you're live, yes.
Yeah, persons who is asymptomatic, they have the virus, right? Hello?
Yes, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to discuss, converse here today, you know?
Yes.
They have the virus. They have the symptoms, right? They have symptoms, but they don't have symptoms.
Well, it's not it's a case that they have the virus, but the symptoms are not prevalent and it's not showing up as somebody who would be showing signs of the virus.
Oh.
So
Show me something then.
So an ordinary man may be walking up and down the streets, but he has the virus within his body. So it hasn't started to affect him to the point that he starts to show signs.
Okay then. Show me something now. If you got the virus, you got the antibodies too, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So then, what's the problem? You people being supposed to get the antibodies?
The issue, from my understanding, is even though somebody may have antibodies, and I was looking at NBC News this morning before I came in here, it's not necessarily that the antibodies will quickly fight off the virus, and that's the thing. So that's why you see a lot of people who have it, even though they have antibodies, it's still you still can get a second hit of it, and that was the case that was on NBC this morning. This young man had the virus. He got over it, but then now he has a second go round of the virus. So it's not necessarily a case of the same virus. It's not necessarily a case that you have antibodies means you're immune to catching the virus again, and that's the concern. That's why health officials and the NEOC here in St. Kitts and Nevis they're preaching wear your face mask, social distance, because even though you have it's possible that you can get it. You can catch it again.
Next question. You ever heard about the cure that they have in Madagascar?
No, I haven't. But at this point in time, I'm skeptical to say there is a cure unless it can be proven that there is a cure, right? There are a lot of news going around, and somebody who's in the business of news, I tend to hold on to the facts. So it may be, and I'll say this reservedly, it may be that there is a cure, a bush cure, as we all would say, but horrible cure, bush cure, we get the context. But for me, I would be skeptical in terms of saying use this, use that, or use the other. Because since the virus started, we heard...
I'm kind of confused. Why are you telling you're confused, right? Because we would wait on a vaccine which would have the germ in it, right? The same virus, right?
I won't say it has the virus. But you know the whole medicine aspect of it. I'm not person involved in medicine.
I mean, for you to develop immunity, for the individual to develop immunity, you must be exposed to the germ, you know.
Yes, that is why.
The other way, right, is to boost the immune system, which is what the herbal tonic would do.
Yeah, it's good to boost
that's
your
what God
immune
said,
system.
give the herb for the healing of the nation, right? Because if you drink the herbs, remember, you know, the CMO was saying we need to boost our immune system because at the end of the day, it is the immune system that fights all disease in the body, you know.
Yeah, that is true. But also you have to remember that not everybody's immune system can withstand an attack of the virus. For example, when you see your body is getting
Boost
fever.
the immune system now.
Yes.
Drink the herbs.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, right, caller?
Maybe it would be a good thing. Maybe like look into the cure they have in Madagascar. You know what I mean?
But caller, we have to remember this, right? Not everybody.
Merit too, you know.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't have merit, but what I'm saying is, you have some people whose bodies, you know, Mr. Abel may be exercising every day. You know, he's fit, he's healthy. Fine, his body may be able to fight it off, but then you have those who don't take care of their bodies as much. So anything that hit them, the slightest thing, a cold or whatever it is, they fall ill. And those are the people who, even though their immune system can be boosted, their bodies are not at that point where they may be able to fight off the virus as easy as somebody else who's naturally fit, even though they use immune boosters. Also, you have to remember, there are a lot of people who have underlying conditions, and those are the people who are being hit the hardest. Because when we first started with the virus, they were saying, oh, people who are young, maybe the teens, early 20s, maybe middle to lower 30s, can fight off the virus. But at the end of the day, now we're seeing people who are even in their teens coming down with it, and these are healthy people. So it's not a case that
no, but when you say they're healthy, because they're young?
No. Well, you see,
it's the food we're eating. Remember,
well, that's true.
We're eating food that comes from hybrid plants, you know.
But that's true.
Hybrid plant is an unnatural plant, right? So what I'm saying, the food could compromise the strength of our immune system. So that's why the herbs, them, right, is what would compensate for that, what we lost true nutrition. You know what I mean? So what the CMO is saying, she's right. We need to boost our immune system.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of vitamin C, boost, and exercise, eh? Exercise is key as well.
Yeah, man. And we need to keep in mind, man, and not because we come out to Africa, I mean it bad, you know? Because to me, like, that's a kind of mania me I see run on this earth, yeah. It's like, Africa come up with something.
I'm somebody who I'm somebody who I'm somebody who grew up on the bush and all of that. Don't get me wrong, eh? Okay. Right. But it's just that sometimes, because I don't want to say I say Mr. Abel used X bush to combat the virus, and then somebody else go use that same bush and it doesn't work for them. So that's why I'm skeptical about saying whether or not there is a specific herbal remedy to deal with it. Something that might be good for one person might not be good for somebody else. So you have to take certain things with, you know.
I'm just saying we need to keep an open mind, you know. But like I'm saying, at the same time, you know, it's funny to see where we grew up on herbs, right? We grew up, most of us grew up drinking bush tea, right? And we doubt it so much. You know what I mean? I mean, we don't see what the bush can do, right?
That's true.
We don't, I mean, we grew up on a vaccine and them things like that. I mean, to me, I would have been more skeptical of these things, these chemicals, more than the bush, because we grew up on the bush, you know what I mean? But every man to that thing, you know?
That's true.
So that's my contribution, King. Good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day, caller. Well, that caller is pushing for more use of herbal medicines. But one key takeaway from that caller is boost your immune system. That is key. And it's not only for the coronavirus, but any disease, whether it be, well, cancer disease, but any ailment, you know, because right now the season is going to be hot, you know, so you need to ensure that you can fight off the cold, the common cold or the common flu. But we go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well.
Interesting conversation between you and the last caller. But even though I agree with him 100%, and I think everybody is saying the same thing, boost your immune system, but don't test it. Your immune system should be in good position, and you should be in good health, but avoid getting the virus. Wear the mask. Wash your hands. Desanitize your hands. Stay safe. Stay as far as you can from that virus, as the East is from the West. And that is the whole idea. And make sure you trust nobody with it. Don't give it to anyone, and don't let anyone give it to you. So at the same time, even though the herb, as he call it, may be good for you, and it could be true, don't test it, because you might not be around to tell it. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, basically, prevention is better than cure. That's what that caller was getting at. And I agree. We all grew up on the herbs. That is the bush, whatever it be, razor grass, you name it. We all grew up on it. But at the end of the day, we still have to be careful in terms of how we promote them. Okay, we lost that caller. But yes, like I'm saying, I'm somebody who I'm there for facts, and something that might be good for me is not necessarily good for somebody else. But my thing is, boost your immune system, wash your hands, wear the face mask, and be prepared. We go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Your pleasant good morning, Brother Abel.
Okay, just quickly, caller, can you turn on your radio, please?
No, the brother was telling you about the cure in Madagascar. You see, what happens is that we are being caught in a trap where we follow everything come from Europe. And that's why you see the can't get nothing straight. Hear this. Breaking news. Madagascar quits World Health Organization over COVID-19 scandal. Madagascar President Andre Rajoelina has removed his country from the World Health Organization. He angrily said, Europe created an organization with a desire for Africans to remain independent. And
Caller.
Could I finish?
No, wait, no. I'm going to allow you to finish. But I'm just trying to get from you before you finish the source of what you're reading.
The source comes from the president of Madagascar.
Yes, okay, I understand that, but just the source where my listeners can actually find it.
You could go on the internet. You could go on the internet and Google it. So what I'm trying to show you is that the people are being locked into these Europeans. As long as Europeans don't validate something, it's not valid. And that is what is happening. The president of Madagascar is saying, I have a cure. And hear this, let me read. Europe created an organization with desire for Africans to remain independent, and them. Africa has found a medicine against COVID virus, but Europe think they have a monopoly of intelligence. As such, they are refusing to acknowledge it. From today, we are no more members of the World Health Organization. WHO offered me $20 million to put a little toxin in my COVID-19 remedy. Madagascar president exposed WHO. Madagascar president Andre Rajoelina has allegedly cleared that the World Health Organization, WHO, offered him $20 million to put a little toxin in their remedy for coronavirus, as the Europeans hacked their remedy. Andre Rajoelina says, people be vigilant. The World Health Organization that we have joined by thinking that it will help us is due to kill Africans. My country, Madagascar, has found a cure for coronavirus, but the Europeans have told me I propose $20 million to put toxins in this remedy to kill my African friends who will use it. I ask all Africans not to use the coronavirus vaccine because it's killing. Come to Madagascar. You who are sick, my country is ready to receive you with enthusiasm. Our remedy is in my yellow color. Is in a yellow color. Do not buy the one of the green color. The one of the green color comes from Europe. The Europeans had our remedy. They have put poison to kill only the Africans as they wanted with the vaccine that we proposed. He added, please share this message because it is urgent. They had our medicine. I want all the Africans to know it. Please do not keep this message, which you share it. You conclude. So I just leave it there. But what I'm trying to show you, Dr. Sadie, you ever heard of Dr. Sadie?
No.
Dr. Sadie cure any disease there is even AIDS. The United States government locked up Dr. Sadie because he said cure AIDS. And when he went to court, when the patients who had AIDS showed up, they threw out the case and said they didn't have any AIDS. These things are out there. Our people should know these things. Europeans have been fooling us from everything. It's time for us to stand on our own. What Granny say? Africans unite. What Granny say? Africans. The only solution to the pollution is Pan-Africanism. Give thanks. One love.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, like I say, I'm someone who used herbal remedies before, but I understand there people have a strong view in terms of what should be used for COVID-19 to treat COVID-19. But at the end of the day, I cannot say one particular remedy is useful. I depend on the health authorities to make that determination. But just to add to what the point that the caller was making, but this is from me, I go with facts. July 13th, two lawmakers in Madagascar have died after contracting COVID-19. Over 20 others, whatever treatment for the virus, the president of Madagascar announced. The deceased comprised one senator and a member of the lower chamber. 11 other members, including senators, also tested positive. The news comes as the government reimposed lockdowns on a major region under, and then give the name there. The reason was also to better contain the surge in COVID-19 cases. We'll come back and we'll go to the phone lines and we'll continue with the discussion. But we have to acknowledge our partner, Rams, and then we'll come right back with Voices.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Buster, roll it up, meet the thirst quencher in my cup. If you have one, hold it up and say, Buster for the colors in my life. Refreshing and nice, and I drink that we like. Buster, you're full of vibes, living for the color. And I'm black and white, we do what we like. We live to enjoy life. Buster, pour it up, different flavor. Load it up. If you have one, hold it up and say, Buster for the colors in my life.
Welcome back to Voices here on Win FM. Just a thing to note, what I was reading was a report by African News written on July 13th for those interested in the source of that report that I just gave. But yes, we here and we're discussing, well, the topic for discussion was the reopening of borders and, you know, the concern of tourists, returning nationals, and those people who would have presented fraudulent documents, certificates to say that they were negative. And that was one of the concerns raised in the Bahamas when health officials there found or discovered that, you know, these people were giving those documents. But we go back to the phone line. Caller, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Now, it was quite interesting that my Christian sister was talking about the New World Order. And then you had this thing from the U.S. State Department. Pompeo?
Yes.
Now, I do not agree with what has happened in Guyana. But the USA is the last country to talk about democracy and undermining democracy. How many countries with democratically elected government they have overthrown? Undermined and overthrown. In the Caribbean, I don't even talk about in the world. In the Caribbean, what has happened in Venezuela. You had democratic elections, you know. And when Maduro was, they declared it was not illegal, it was illegal, and they are deciding who is the president in Venezuela. They are trying to decide who should rule Cuba, who should rule. In fact, they are very subtle. They send all kind of subtle messages to the other Caribbean islands, and they hold a visa over our heads. A visa. We don't get much aid, you know. So now that the Chinese giving aid, they run come. They are fighting. I listen to Fox TV, Fox and Friends a lot. They are fighting over supremacy. Which country is the number one country in the world? China had passed them, so they're now doing their best to try and make America great again by making other people less, and to go and just impose visa ban now, whatever, and Guyanese is out of order. It's out of order. And we need to speak up. They were harassing us, and that is why I sometimes listen to Mr. Brantley, you know, to make sure he's not influenced, because sometimes I'm a bit concerned about his statements he makes. They want to railroad us into supporting them invading Venezuela. And God bless Dr. Timothy Harris, whether you like him or not. He was the chairman of CARICOM at the time. And he, along with Mayor Motley of Barbados and the Trinidad one, Rowley, his name is, right?
Yes, Kit Rowley.
Yeah, they had to stand up and say, look, excuse me, you don't just come and go into the people's place. And this latest thing with the 5G, you heard about it, right?
It was on the
they
news this
are
morning.
going all over the world, pressuring people, harassing people, putting on sanctions on people's country, and nobody could put on them, I mean, really, this is what she mean by the New World Order. It must be ordered by them, and it is unfair. Very unfair. I mean, that's what the matter in the court. The Guyanese people must decide what they want. Because to me, some CARICOM to me should have a meeting at some point with Granger and the next one, Jagan or whatever his name is.
But Miss Henry, they had that meeting and they agreed to the recount process. So we don't understand what's the back and forth there. You know, the results of the recount have been announced.
But do you agree with this imposition of visa restriction?
Well, the U.S. has been urging them for the last several weeks to come to some level of agreement.
That is not America's place. They are interfering in people's internal affairs.
I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying. You know, they're interfering.
To me, out of order. Because if you don't speak up, next thing one morning you wake up, you have a different prime minister in St. Kitts. If you don't speak up in this region, you don't have no say. They are responsible for a lot of what we're going through. Very responsible. I mean, we have the COVID, you know, and we want things to prevent the spread. Or you can't get ventilators. Even Barbados somebody had paid for them, and they said they can't leave the country. And then they run down here now and trying to tell us who we can associate with and who we cannot associate with. That is the New World Order. And until somebody gave Mr. Trump the message that God rule, the world doesn't belong to America. We have people there. We love Americans, but we don't like their what you want to call it, their policies, their philosophy. Since Trump has gone, he has revived this thing about America first, and we down here in the backyard, and a lot of foolishness. We are sovereign states. And the quicker he learns, I tell him, you know, he is just making enemies. He's making enemies for his own country and for his own people. You hear they having all kind of explosion in Iran, eh? I don't support Iran, you know. But Fox is asking, well, who is responsible for all of these things? Well, you don't have to be a scientist to know. But one little thing with them, whether they engineer it or not, the whole world must go to war. I mean, they have done enough damage. And somebody need to have a talk with Mr. Trump. Have a talk with him because America can become the number one in the world, you know.
Miss Henry, do you volunteer?
To do what?
Have a talk with him?
Yeah, because you see, number one, I don't need to live in America or American country. Somehow to act like up there's heaven. So we got to swallow our spit. I have been to America a couple of times. I went to the IMF Institute twice, you know.
Okay, Miss Henry, try the seconds. I have two callers
Yes,
waiting.
so what I'm saying, I think the Caribbean countries should raise a protest. Don't just come. They have no right. They went into Grenada. They're into all of these countries down here. They're into all of them. And whenever they can't have their way, they know what to do. So I beg you. I beg all of you up there who would be voting for Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Talk to your president. This is the Caribbean. We are a zone of peace, and we want peace. If he was going in, if they said they're going to negotiate and have a talk with Granger, don't just start. Well, you better do this before we come in. No. All right then.
All right, thanks, caller. And we go back to the phone lines and take this caller. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. I'm somewhat disappointed, but not surprised that we still don't have an idea of when we will be reopening. Disappointed because we know that we have to reopen at some point. Okay, and to me, by now, a plan should have been in place to effect that reopening. But like I said, I'm not surprised because we keep missing opportunities in our handling of the virus. Because, in my opinion, there's no leadership. It's more like followership. If we had everything under control, we would have a plan in place already. After all, we have been dealing with this issue since in February. We should have benchmarks to reopen, just like we should have had benchmarks to close our borders. Okay, and saying that we are working on it is just not enough. A recent publication listed the countries that have reopened. It's Antigua, Aruba, Bermuda, Bahamas, Barbados, and BVI. And I think Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic, and St. Martin.
St. Vincent
so
and Grenada as well.
And Grenada?
And St. Vincent.
And St. Vincent. They have actually reopened. Okay, so we see who are the heavyweights in the region. Okay, the countries that have a plan, they know what they're doing it, they're executing it. Okay, I saw, for instance, a video of the first commercial flight going into Barbados, and you could see the results of planning and leadership. You know, a smooth reopening. You know, as a doctor on a show this morning on the same station said, we have to learn to live with the virus. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And continuing to hide behind the fact that the virus is dangerous. So therefore we should keep the state of emergency, keep our borders closed, continue to use social security reserves, which are not limitless. That's not a viable plan. Okay, so we have to take the hard decision, not be reckless, but we can't live in a bubble forever. I mean, it's just not feasible. Right, and I'm not getting the idea. I'm getting the idea of a wait and see forever kind of thing, which means that we're going to be the last out the door to reopen. To me, that's the reverse. We should have been the first to close, right? We should have been the first to close and first to reopen, because if we had everything under control, we would have known exactly what to do in order to reopen, but that just not seem doesn't seem to be the case, right? So we're none the wiser as to when we're going to open, and that's unfortunate because obviously there are a lot of people who are impacted. Okay, that's my thought.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll head. It's about 3 minutes too, so we'll take a quick break and come right back here on Voices here on Win FM.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Mustn't forget the bop.
I see you like bop too.
If I'm cleaning the garage, I need bop.
One bop for the home and one for the office.
Bop insecticide, preferred for its proven performance. Bop's fast-acting, long-lasting. Bop stops both flying and crawling insects. Get serious. Get Bop.
Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/ramsupermarket. Follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/ramsupermarket. And subscribe to us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/ramsupermarket.
Welcome back to Voices here on Win FM. We go to the phone line. This is our last caller for the morning. Caller, good morning. You have just about a minute.
Before noon the hour. But I would like to add in something there, please. The man to listen via radio and internet. Basically, where you've been on the front line in your discussion this morning, prior to how we should be able to reach it in how we are opening our borders. From hearing how the Prime Minister and the medical chief of staff yesterday and the program. But I would like to say, we're still in the concept of European mind thinking. We're not basing our mind as the African people. If you're telling me that you're dealing with facts, I heard you tell one of the callers that you're dealing with facts. The Virgin outlined to you that these are information that are out there of the Madagascar president stating that he do not trust the World Health Organization, or you all call the World Health Organization. We are taking instance from these people who are trying to kill our people still on the world market. And we are not putting our emphasis to tell them, if you're telling me that there is a virus rapidly in the world, how is it that people who are able to come back against this virus, y'all want to make sure that these people come out on the front line to give support, as they all are stating, because yesterday there is no vaccine. But we've seen our countries like Africa taking initiative steps because we don't trust the World Health Organization. And the New World Order, what the lady emphasized only, is a fact. And it's not by Donald Trump. It's by all those who are in the front line when it comes to economical power. That's why we have to look at the inner circle of the what you call the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Freemasonry. These are the people really got challenged. You all have a safe day, yeah?
All right, thanks, caller. Well, at this point in time, we have to break for the headline news. I know the lines are going off, but we're encroaching on headline news time, and we go straight to that right now, and we come back with a discussion on the other half.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Daily low with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
The reopening of the Federation's borders continues to be a major talking point. The latest official to address the issue is Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, the medical chief of staff of the Jane France Hospital.
We all have to be aware that any lifting of the borders will come with a risk of the importation of the virus. If we are to aim for zero risk with the virus entering the Federation, we will have to wait for an effective vaccine and immunity of our population. What level of risk are we willing to accept in opening our borders?
Like other officials, Dr. Wilkinson points out that many factors will have to be taken into account in the reopening of the St. Kitts and Nevis borders.
The decision to reopen is not solely a medical decision, but should be guided by medical advice. Economic and social activity must be considered in making the decision. There must be public education and buy-in as we move forward, as it has to be an all-of-society approach. And your individual responsibility is germane to our collective success. We will continue to refine our protocol for reopening to ensure we take on the least risk, but allow economic activity and not overwhelm our healthcare system.
As he has done before, Prime Minister Timothy Harris is reiterating that there is no rush to open the borders.
We aim in St. Kitts and Nevis to be a model country in the careful way in which we open up our borders, not today nor next week, but in the months ahead. As we continue the hard work of opening up our economy, we will increase job prospects, we will give people more choices, and we will create more opportunities for new activities, new services, and of course, new jobs.
The borders matter was one of the subjects dealt with Tuesday night on the government program Leadership Matters.
With Liat flights grounded for at least another month due to the coronavirus and plans to liquidate, The other airlines interested in operating regionally could take to the skies in that capacity as early as this week. That announcement is coming from CARICOM Chairman St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. While speaking on NBC Radio in SVG Wednesday, the Prime Minister noted that One Caribbean on Sunday last began operating its expanded flight operations in the region.
And to facilitate interregional travel. I mean, going from Georgetown to Kingston would be about the way of going from Kingston to Bridgetown. And having made that point, on Sunday, One Caribbean is up and running out of the blocks. The first of the airlines to do regular scheduled flights since Liat last came through the sub-region on March the 29th. They went St. Lucia to Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. And no one is immune from the protocols. I just want to say this. Of course, from the particular date in August the 1st, there'd be the CARICOM bubble. And I think they went out on Monday. I don't know if they went yesterday. I think it's 4 days a week they're doing at the moment. And in another 10 days or so, they're going to start to do other flights to other, as far up as Dominica, I understand.
One Caribbean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines base, is one of 6 entities that are looking to fill the gap left by the coming liquidation of the regional entity, Liat 1974. SVG Air is another of the carriers looking to fill the void.
I saw SVG Air on Friday. They tell me that later this week, and they'll announce. And in fact, they were thinking of moving on Wednesday to go down to Grenada and maybe even do a Barbados flight. I've been in touch with Ronnie Mohammed, the chair of Caribbean Airlines. In fact, I spoke to him yesterday. And he used to send me the schedule. He says that in another week or so, they should begin to do runs in our part of the world, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia. They're already doing the Barbados, Jamaica, Havana run, Jamaica, Havana. And so it's opening up bit by bit. And then into Caribbean, I have this week again, Mr. Gardner, the head of Inter-Caribbean out of Turks and Caicos, was in touch with me, and I told him that the director of airports, that she's involved in processing their request for permission to enter St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to do their air service, their airline service, and that the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority has been informed. And shortly, I would expect that the Director of Airport Services would advise me on what the Air License and Transport Board is doing in respect of Inter-Caribbean.
To that end, Dr. Gonsalves is urging all airlines to sign on to the Regional Air Agreement to facilitate the smooth operations of the process.
Just want to say that I've been encouraging everyone concerned to sign the MASA, the Multilateral Air Services Agreement, which would facilitate, well, not just sign, but ratify the CARICOM Multilateral Air Service Agreement, the one which replaced an earlier one, which would facilitate ease of travel and setting up of business in the respective territories for airlines from CARICOM.
During a recently held virtual meeting, former CARICOM chairman Mia Motley announced that 6 airlines were interested in filling the void left by the proposed liquidation of Liat. One concern coming out of the new moves is whether the carriers will service the northern section of the region, including St. Kitts and Nevis, and when. Meanwhile, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister spoke to the strained relationship between himself and his counterpart in Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown.
Whatever misunderstandings that he had, I am sure at the end of the conversation, they would have been clarified for him if any clarification was needed. We are trying to see if we can get this meeting. I spoke to Prime Minister Motley. You know, this meeting with the shareholders, the major shareholders, for Gaston to present his plan, what he has. You know, whether you're supporting his plan or not supporting his plan, he deserves to be heard in relation to his plan.
The United States government has backpedaled on its push to have international students leave the country and not renew student visas if their universities switch learning online for the fall semester. On Tuesday, the Trump administration rescinded its immigration order that would have resulted in over 1 million international students facing the possibility of deportation. The backpedaling of the White House followed a July 6th move that would have forced students to attend in-person classes during the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States or leave the country altogether if their classes shifted online. According to media reports, the government faced at least 18 lawsuits challenging the orders, which affected F1 and M1 visas. Since the announcement of the move, the U.S. government faced heavy criticisms for the decision, now that the pandemic has shifted learning online. Minister of Education Janelle Powell, in a recent interview with WinFM, had expressed concern over the move, indicating that the St. Kitts and Nevis government was seeking to clarify the status of students in the United States. At the time of the interview, the minister did not have the number of students who were said to be studying in the United States.
Supervisor of Elections Elvin Bailey faced a barrage of questions from members of the public when he appeared on the radio program Issues on Freedom FM on Tuesday. The subject was the June 5th general elections and what callers perceived to have been shortcomings before and during the elections. Here are some of the examples cited.
Charles Gayton of Durant Avenue has lived in Durant Avenue all his life. His name came off of the list, and with all they tried, they could not get it back on. How is that possible?
But Brother Bailey, if I am living in Birdrock, and I used to live in Halfway Tree, is there any law which compels me to move my name from Halfway Tree? Is there a stated law which compels me to move my name from Halfway Tree to Birdrock?
I had a situation where a gentleman said to me, and actually wrote that said, he's from here. He has always voted here, but he lives over there. An objection was made to his name, and this answers Mr. Clark's question. There is no compulsory requirement for you to transfer your name, but you run the risk of somebody coming and making an official complaint that you do not live here anymore. That sparks an investigation.
My comment is that I work in the magistrate court where we prepared the list, and I have never seen nothing like this. The electoral office only opened in 1983, I think. Okay? And I acted presiding officer twice, I could remember, and poll clerk. And you had to prepare your station the day before. I don't know. See why they had to think, because the people weren't trained.
On Thursday night, we were there distributing the materials. Everybody collected their stuff. What was not available up at Birdrock was a desk and a chair. Well, tables and chairs. But everybody had everything.
One of the questions that kept coming up was the removal of names from the voters list. Here is one example and the response given by Supervisor of Elections Bailey.
In Central, there were some names basically removed from the voters list. Did you have a hearing in Central to remove the names them off the list? Did you have a hearing? And did you have a basically result? Did the Labour Party went to that hearing? Those people that definitely were basically removed from the list. Mr. Bailey, what they want to ask for it because of time's sake. Let's say, for instance, you remove my name. You remove AB name. Okay? AB object to say, no, right? You can't move my name, I live here. Now, what about not having a hearing? Because you say now they will have a hearing. What about there is no hearing, but the person's name still removed?
Nobody's name is removed without a hearing.
Nobody's name.
If you feel that your name...
Hold on, you just said just now. Nobody's name. So you're saying
nobody's name is removed without a hearing.
AB name removed.
We're talking over each other, you know. We're talking over each other. If you feel that an injustice has been done to you, come to the electoral office and have it addressed. I cannot sit here and deal with hypotheticals, ABs. The specifics of the case will have to be investigated. So bring the information to the electoral office. We will tell you when the notice went out. We will tell you who received the notice. And then you can take it from there.
Elections Supervisor Elvin Bailey. He was speaking on Freedom FM.
PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom. It's being proposed that a new offense of predatory sexual assault be created and incorporated in existing legislation in order to broaden the protection of the nation's most vulnerable. The recommendation for the creation of this new offense is one of several brought forward by a joint select committee appointed to complete the review of the Sexual Offences Act, along with the Offences Against the Person Act, the Domestic Violence Act, and the Child Care and Protection Act. Here's a look at some of the other issues brought forward in the report. If predatory sexual assault is stipulated as a new offense, it would penalize any adult who engages in sexual intercourse with a vulnerable victim. Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith explained further to members of the Senate.
Defined as whether a child under the age of 12, someone with mental disorder, the description of vulnerable is dealt with elsewhere, Mr. President. Such a person would be guilty of an offense to be known as predatory sexual assault, and the recommended penalty for this offense would be a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Mr. President, this provision was a result of a very again, robust debate on the matter of rape and its definition and how much protection is given under our laws. And the perpetuation of what is referred to in some quarters as a rape culture, Mr. President, where use of benign terms such as sexual intercourse with a person under 16 so remove all of the impact and trauma that can occur around such an incident, where especially the relationship is one of trust and confidence. The committee was not minded to adopt the phrase used elsewhere, which is statutory rape, and there was in fact, there was ultimately an agreement that the creation of this offense, this language, would provide an issue, or rather a consensus around which persons could agree.
The recommendation for the creation of this new offense is one of several brought forward by a joint select committee led by Justice Minister Delroy Chuck. Senator Johnson-Smith noted that the committee also deliberated on the matter of marital rape.
Married women who are raped by their husbands will no longer have to fulfill certain conditions to qualify for legislative protection. The committee recommended that once a woman has withheld her consent in a relationship, irrespective of whether it occurs in marriage or not, it is to be considered rape. Among other things, Mr. President, it was recognized that rape is an act of violence, And marriage is an institution which must be fostered in a context of love and mutual respect, not violence.
Majority of the committee agreed to retain the age of consent at 16 years.
There was deep and robust discussion on this issue, Mr. President, and in fact I believe it may have been the only issue on which we felt compelled to call for a vote within the committee. And the majority view was that it would remain at that age, at that level. The committee has, however, on a related matter, decided to recommend the inclusion of a close in age provision of a 4-year ban, and this is again in the context of the Sexual Offences Act, Mr. President, which you know criminalizes sex under the age of 16. What was proposed is a 4-year ban to prevent children within a certain age range from being criminalized in circumstances where they willingly engage in sexual activity with each other. The fundamental point being, Mr. President, not to encourage this type of activity, but recognizing that its treatment by the justice system, the criminal justice system, is inappropriate and delivers poor results from all perspectives. Poor results in respect of the use of police resources, poor impacts on both young men and young women, and the unintended consequences of criminal records for activity which, even if ill-advised, is perhaps better treated as a social issue than a criminal one.
The committee also recommended that the Sexual Offences Act be amended to place an obligation on persons who enter Jamaica and have been convicted of a sexual offence abroad or have been listed on a sex offenders register abroad to report to the relevant authorities and be listed on the sex offenders registry in Jamaica.
The committee also recognized significant weaknesses in the operation of the registry and therefore recommended expressly that the Ministry of National Security conduct a thorough review of the administration and operation of the registry.
Other recommendations called for a strengthening of penalties for offences against women, children and elderly persons living with disabilities, the strengthening of penalties, particularly in relation to aggravated assault and murder of pregnant women, the creation of a criminal offence of stalking and harassment.
The matter of corporal punishment was also discussed extensively, and the position that has been recommended by the committee and was agreed to by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information was that we were at a stage where we should move beyond the corporal punishment being prohibited only in early childhood institutions, which is the state of our current law, and that we should explicitly prohibit it in schools, public institutions for the care, instruction or guidance of children who are in the care of the state.
This is Al Jazeera.
China's vowing to retaliate after the U.S. president announced new measures to hold Beijing accountable. Donald Trump has revealed sanctions against Chinese officials over the recent national security law imposed on Hong Kong. Trump's announcement came after the UK banned Chinese tech giant Huawei from its new high-speed mobile network, citing concerns about security. Katrina Yu reports from Beijing.
Hong Kong is known as Asia's World City. But the US government says that nickname no longer applies. Washington has revoked the territory's special economic status as punishment for the newly imposed national security law. From now on, says the US, it will treat Hong Kong like mainland China. The Chinese government has condemned the move, saying it will respond with sanctions.
To uphold our legitimate interests, China will make the necessary responses to sanction the relevant personnel and entities of the U.S. side. We urge the U.S. to correct mistakes and to not implement this act and stop interfering in China's internal affairs.
Critics say the new security law strips Hong Kong of its freedoms and autonomy, guaranteed for 50 years in the 1997 handover agreement with the UK. The Chinese government says law-abiding residents and business people won't be affected. But several companies are moving forward with plans to relocate, including the New York Times, which is shifting some of its operations to South Korea. China has also hit back at the UK government, for banning Chinese telecom company Huawei from its 5G networks, warning that Chinese investors should reconsider doing business there.
This is about the UK at all costs, politicizing commercial and technology issues. This is about China facing major threats in its investment security in the UK. And it's about our confidence in whether the UK markets can remain open, fair, and non-discriminatory.
US President Donald Trump has taken credit for Britain freezing out Huawei.
We confronted anti-Chinese technology and telecom providers. We convinced many countries, and I did this myself for the most part, not to use Huawei.
Britain's government says its decision has nothing to do with Donald Trump, but that hasn't convinced China. Officials here in Beijing say the UK is colluding with the US to oppress Chinese businesses and warns that China will do whatever it takes to protect its companies and core interests. Chinese state media says any retaliation against the UK should be painful and public, a warning to other countries that China won't be bullied. However China moves forward, it faces an uphill diplomatic battle in a world filled with increasing tension and fewer friends. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
In the meantime, the New York Times says it's moving some of its journalists out of Hong Kong because of the introduction of that new security law. And on that subject, I want to bring in William Yang. He's a journalist and vice president of Taiwan Foreign Correspondents Club, and he's reported extensively from Hong Kong, and he's joining us on Skype from Taipei. As always, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Why is it that Hong Kong seems so important to international media particularly?
So Hong Kong has been serving as the window for international media outlets into China for decades because of its high degree of autonomy and also its respect for freedom of press. Hong Kong has a very long tradition of respecting and diversifying its press freedom, and that has been used as a very important way for the international audience to really learn about China through the headquarters being based in Hong Kong. But in recent years, we have seen incidents where journalists are being expelled on the grounds of either supporting, like hosting pro-independent politicians during public talks. And this time around, the New York Times has in fact confirmed that one of its staff who used to work in China was denied the renewal of his work visa by the Hong Kong authorities just recently. So that prompt the New York Times to decide that they believe that it is no longer going to be so safe and also like smooth for them to operate in Hong Kong as before.
Is there anything that operating as a journalist in Hong Kong gives you, any advantage that it gives journalists in Hong Kong as opposed to operating in, say, Seoul in South Korea, for example, where I believe the New York Times is planning to move some of its journalists?
This is the Carib Update News Service. I'm Wendy Chateau reporting. A new court challenge likely to further delay Guyana election declaration. This is the big story we're tracking this hour on the AM edition of Newsbreak for Wednesday, July 15, 2020. Details to this and more straight ahead. Now for the details. A court challenge has been filed to block the attempt by chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, retired Justice Claudette Singh, from declaring the winner of the March 2nd polls using the results of the national recount process. The new legal action brought by private resident Ms. Singer Jones contends that Singh can only make a declaration from the report submitted by the Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, and that neither she nor the Commission can dictate to him what his report should contain. As a result, Jones, who is represented by attorney Mayo Robertson, asserts that the Guyana Elections Commission is obligated to accept the CEO's report of June 11th, in which he relies on the declarations made up to March 13th by the returning officers for the 10 administrative regions. GCOM, Singh, Lowenfield, and the Attorney General have been listed as respondents in Jones's action. Late Tuesday, former President Barrett Jagdeo blasted at the latest maneuver.
what effectively they're asking the court is to allow the use of fraudulent numbers to declare the results of the elections. That is what effectively, based on, in their view, some technicality. You remember what Ramjatan said? Oh, we can win on a technicality.
The Jamaica government last night gave notice that it intends to table a motion to amend the Representation of the People's Act to facilitate the holding of general and local government elections on the same date. Leader of government business in the House of Representatives, Carl Samuda, gave the notice on behalf of Prime Minister Andrew Holness, saying that the motion will be tabled at the next meeting of the House. The announcement comes after many years of discussion about the possibility and cost-effectiveness of having both elections. Just last month, Director of Elections Glasspool Brown told a meeting of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee that the Electoral Office of Jamaica has the capability to hold general and local government elections on the same day. He stated, however, that his office will require additional time between the nomination of candidates and the casting of ballots. This is Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service. In more news, Grenada's airport is this Wednesday officially reopened for commercial flights, though there are no schedules right now. The Grenada government is reported to be in discussion with a number of airlines they hope will fill the void left by the troubled Liat. However, on Tuesday, Health Minister Nicholas Steele said 2 chartered flights from Trinidad and Tobago will arrive today. Acting Permanent Secretary Dr. Francis Martin Tuesday warned that opening up has some dangers.
We're about to open our borders. The risk is highest because we have no doubt now that the onslaught of diseases that we've been seeing internationally is certainly going to get into our shores, and as a result of that, we have to manage this. We have put most of what we need to put in place. No plan is perfect, as ministers have said, but we have increased our ability to test, to trace, and to treat, and of course our quarantine measures.
Premier of the Turks and Caicos, Charlene Cartwright Robinson, says the plans to open up to international commercial air traffic remains in course in spite of the number of new COVID cases there recently. Cartwright Robinson announced at a press conference Tuesday that they aren't scheduled for the July 22 reopening.
Given the reality of the increased numbers, some people have rightfully raised whether we should open our airport to international commercial flights, as was previously announced for July 22nd. As we stand here today, the answer is still yes. Because of the other factors we have highlighted, our improved surveillance capabilities, our improved medical capabilities, and our ability to quickly isolate cases. When our borders are opened, the limited arrivals will be under controlled circumstances with strict protocols to observe.
She said all the major airlines are returning after the prolonged lockdown period.
I must also report that the majority of the major carriers are on board, with American Airlines and Delta beginning on day 1. We also have JetBlue, United, Air Canada to begin July and August. British Airways has advised that it will resume, and hopefully by September. Southwest has shared some time ago that it will return early next year, and we await an update from WestJet. Bahamas Air, as a regional carrier, has also signaled its intention to return to the country, and we await their start dates.
These are some of the top stories from around the Caribbean this hour. This has been Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service, the Caribbean's newsroom. Reporting this hour, I am Wendy Chateau.
Hello, I'm Debbie Russ with the BBC News. Ethiopia has confirmed that it has begun filling the reservoir behind the disputed Grand Renaissance Dam on the River Nile, a day after talks with Egypt and Sudan ended without agreement. The Ethiopian Water Minister, Sileshe Bakela, said that building the dam and filling it went hand in hand. James Reid reports.
Ethiopia sees the Grand Renaissance Dam as crucial for its economic development. Once complete, it will be the largest hydroelectric plant in Africa. But Egypt and Sudan, which lie downstream, fear it will greatly reduce their access to the waters of the Blue Nile. Egypt, in particular, is almost entirely dependent on the river. Years of negotiations on how to share the waters have failed to achieve agreement. Ethiopia's decision to start filling the reservoir unilaterally so soon after the latest talks ended in stalemate is certain to cause tension.
China's ambassador in London has suggested there could be economic retaliation after Britain's decision to exclude Huawei from its 5G mobile network. Liu Xiaoming said other Chinese firms might now decide not to invest in Britain. Chinese companies have bought into a number of British industries, including energy, steel and transport. Meanwhile, in Washington, within the past hour, the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced new American sanctions targeting employees of Huawei and other Chinese businesses.
The State Department will impose visa restrictions on certain employees of Chinese technology companies like Huawei that provide material support to regimes engaging in human rights violations and abuses globally.
Police in Azerbaijan have used water cannon to disperse thousands of demonstrators calling for military action against neighbouring Armenia. The protests come after 3 days of fighting along the border, which killed a total of 15 troops from both sides. Here's the BBC's Caucasus correspondent, Rayhan Dimitri.
End the quarantine, start the war, chanted thousands of demonstrators in the Azeri capital Baku in the early hours on Wednesday. Some protesters stormed the parliament building before being dispersed by the police. Large gatherings are rare in authoritarian Azerbaijan, but on Tuesday, when the Azeri death toll in renewed fighting with neighbouring Armenia reached 11 servicemen, public anger boiled over. The fighting began on Sunday. Both sides accused each other of starting it.
The former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan is attempting to mediate in the escalating political crisis in Mali. The leaders of the protest movement are pressing for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to go, despite his offer of concessions. 3 days of violent clashes in the capital Bamako between demonstrators and the security forces last week left at least 11 people dead. President Keïta is under a mounting pressure to step aside. BBC News. The Russian parliament has approved legislation allowing elections to be staged over 3 days and voting not to be confined to polling stations. The vote follows a recent referendum to extend President Putin's rule, which controversially was held over 7 days, with some polling stations set up in buses, tents and even on street benches. European Union judges in Luxembourg have overturned a European Commission order for the technology giant Apple to pay the Irish government €13 billion in back taxes. It's the latest blow to the Competition Commissioner Margrethe Vestager's drive to tax US-based digital giants in Europe. The Dutch MEP Paul Tang said Apple had to pay a more proportionate amount of tax.
Why is there a company that pays 0.005% in taxes? I pay more taxes than Apple, for that matter. Many people pay more taxes. I think people find this deeply unfair. And there's also a disconnect between the people and politics, especially between the people and Irish politics.
The head of the French opposition party, the Republicans, has raised security concerns after President Emmanuel Macron was mobbed by protesters on the National Bastille Day holiday. Christian Jacob questioned the risks President Macron was taking when he took a stroll with his wife Brigitte in the Tuileries Gardens in Paris on Tuesday with his security detail. The president took time to exchange words with Yellow Vest supporters who'd chanted for his resignation. A government spokesman said the engagement underlined the president's absolute openness to dialogue. The Portuguese football club and current Premier League champions SL Benfica has confirmed that its president, Luís Filipe Vieira, has been placed under investigation for tax evasion. The two companies that run the club and own the stadium, Benfica SAD and Benfica Estadio, are also suspected of tax fraud. According to local media reports, the allegations concern payments of nearly $700,000. BBC News.
That was the Win FM headline news, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carrie Brewery, CNC Trading, The Grange.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB, live, love, be. With LLB, live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB, live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters, live, love, be.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Wall with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
Found the sound. 98.9.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Santy provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
This is your local weather forecast brought to you by Sweet Cane. Local weather forecast for St. Cat's and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, 16th July. Synopsis: weak instability induced by a trough could trigger the development of a few passing showers across the area. Today's weather, partly cloudy with a 60% or moderate chance of showers. Tonight's weather, partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of showers. Winds east-northeast to east 15 to 28 kilometers or 8 to 15 knots. Seas 1.2 to 1.5 meters or 4 to 5 feet. Today's sunset 6:49 p.m. Tomorrow's sunrise 5:45 a.m. This has been your local weather forecast, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Brought to you by Sweet Cane.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Santy provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss this, it's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Voices here on Win FM. I'm your host for the second hour, Jermine Abel. And we go straight to the phone lines as we return. We lost that caller. But yes, well, we were discussing in the first hour of the program the concerns raised surrounding fraudulent documents being presented and how can we protect ourselves against that. Well, we'll go straight to the phone lines right now as we continue with Voices. Caller, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon again. I just want to say, I'm surprised at Miss Henry. Because I see she came back at my comment, and I'm surprised at her for someone who declared to be a child of God. Because if Miss Henry will really understand what I was talking about, because even the last caller, he gets what I'm talking about. This New World Order is bigger than Donald Trump, bigger than everybody. Because let me tell you, even in Little Stinkits, the Prime Minister is going to tell y'all what y'all can do and what y'all cannot do when this New World Order takes place. So, Miss Henry, I am surprised at you, but it seemed like he had a job to give to America this morning. But, the thing about America, Miss Henry, you have a saying that if America sneeze, you catch cold. You can only catch cold from somebody if they sneeze on you if you're in your face. When you have to depend on people, then they control And that is the problem. Here we brag all the time. We have the most fertile land in the world, but we can't feed ourselves. We cannot feed ourselves. We have to wait for Dominica to send us food or some other country to send the food to us, and we have the most fertile soil, and we brag about that mess, right? And look at it. Look at this pandemic. Borders are closed. Our Prime Minister and all everybody brag. Borders are closed. Borders are closed all over the world. We're a tourist industry, right? So the tourists, they stop come. What's going to happen to the country? Because we depend on the tourists. So Ms. Henry seems to have a job for America. And then she talks about there's people who seem like they can't do without America, they have to live in America. I'm not one of those people. I can live in my beautiful little island sink if I need it. I don't mind. I came to America not by choice. My father brought me here when I was small. So Ms. Henry, as a child of God, I am shocked. You say you're a child of God. I am very surprised at you. Because in this new world order, bigger than Donald Trump, bigger than any politician in the world. And it's coming. Get ready, world. You have a good day. God bless.
All right, thank you, caller. Yes, I was saying before I took the call, for the first half of the program, we discussed reopening and concerns surrounding fraudulent documents. I know we heard during the headline news a report that was done by Ken Richards surrounding some of the concerns and plans that were going to be put in place for the reopening of the borders when that time do come. It's inevitable. We keep pushing it on and on, time and time again, whether or not it be here on Voices, on the station itself, or anywhere else. You know, the borders have to be reopened at some time, and that's what was done during the headline news. But the concern was also expressed in the Bahamas, you know, about forged documents, certificates that say, hey, look, this person is COVID negative. They don't have the virus. And, you know, everybody shared their thoughts and opinions. Where we talk about, we were supposed to have heard from Ralph Gonzalez. He was talking this morning, and you heard that as well, a bit of that on the news, that several of the airlines have started to operate. One Caribbean started on Sunday, expanding its operations to several other territories in the region. And how do we deal with that? And also St. Vincent, which opened the borders last week, first flight, thereabout. They have 6 confirmed cases, and everybody was in quarantine. But something that was striking coming out of that is, just like what happened here in St. Kitts and Nevis, a lot of people who they told to self-quarantine at home, they were not following those measures. So now, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is actually about to, and it's a recommendation that Gonzalez put forward this morning, they are going to put strict measures in place to fine people, that is both tourists as well as residents and citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in order to have some level of compliance, because you just can't enter the territory and I told you, hey, look, we don't have all the places in terms of resources to accommodate everybody. If you're going to be self-quarantining, please do that. But we know when the onset of the virus here in St. Kitts and Nevis, a lot of people didn't do that. So we had the army and the police. You know, I saw it for myself. The army, big guns, the soldiers were out clad in their protective gears, and they were monitoring those people that took them for tests. Police did likewise. So that's the concern. So what he's looking to do, to have as early as next week, probably pass legislation to penalize those persons who are not adhering to the self-isolation. So we'll hear a bit about that from Dr. Gonzalez and the way forward for Liat. And he also mentioned this morning that he is going to have a meeting, try to schedule a meeting with the major shareholder governments to discuss proposals by Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown with regards to a new proposal, a new plan for regional airline Liat, whether it be save the one that's about to be liquidated, or liquidate that one and form another LIAT and have it stored, have its operating base be in Antigua and Barbuda. So we'll hear all of that from Gaston, from Ralph Gonzalez shortly. But as voices, you can call and share your views on any topic of interest to you. We were also discussing the COVID-19. And, just one thing I want to clarify. I'm not saying that I do not support the use of herbal medicine. What I'm saying is what might be good, and I kept saying this earlier, what is good for one person may not always be good for someone else. Yes, we have all these herbal medicines, and we saw what's happening in okay, let me go take this caller. Caller, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon again.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you enjoy your lunch or your little snack. I know it is down there, I've been down there a couple of times when lunch is fasting. Anyway, to my good sister in Connecticut, the Bible says the Antichrist will be a man. While we speak of the New World Order, whichever country is the most dominant that can control the other countries will do so. This thing about Jermine is a Christian since I 13 and I 72. I have studied the Bible, studied prophecies and everything. And you are pleased done with it. You are accusing God of not saving me. Somebody does not agree with you does not make them less a Christian than you are. You must stop it. And as I'm saying, right now, who has the power? Look at the war situation. Who has influenced Australia, New Zealand? Who else? The UK.
In the UK.
You understand? The UK, the gentleman, the Prime Minister of the UK, made a declaration sometime early this year so that he was going with Warre.
Mm-hmm.
But he has been pressured, and then they put on sanctions. Who is walking around sanctioning the whole world? I am not accusing anybody, but the facts are there. This thing about walking around putting on sanctions on everybody in the world, when you rule, the Bible says and when you finish, you're going to become the man of peace, the man of sin. Whether we want to believe it or not, until somebody takes the place of the supreme economic ruler, that's Bible. So I am not picking on Americans per se, but facts are facts and history is history. Of course, our government and our economy is tied into theirs. That does not mean we have to be subservient to them. The economy is also tied into China too, and that they are fighting to entangle or disentangle themselves. There is no independent country on the face of the earth. In spite of what you hear, look, the other day, they had this big thing with Mexico and Canada. He had to come to the realization that you don't rule the world. He wants to sanction on everybody. I am sure she doesn't approve of it. So to say that, well, we depend on them, so what? Of course we depend on them. But it does not mean that our people don't have any nationality, any sense of pride and integrity. It is for our governments to diversify our economies rather than having it. We gone from the UK. We used to be hooked up to the UK until 1974 when we unhooked the currency. Then we gone to the US. But when we go into ourselves, I mean, that is the same thing the Rastas talking about, this pledge of allegiance. When are we going to take some pride in ourselves? Are we going to sit down and allow everybody to think us as being second class to them? That's my point. So whether it was Donald Trump or Obama, the point is America is exerting the most power on the earth today. That's a fact. And they're using it to their advantage and the disadvantage of everybody else. Imagine that they're trying to force the whole of Europe. Look at the treaty they had with Iran. They came out, and the European nations said they're not coming out. Sanctions upon sanctions, it's sanctioning everybody. We have got to listen to the news, analyze the news, read. I'm not saying she don't read, but I am warning all of you, like, oh, Miss Henry says that. Miss Henry is a Christian since 13. You hear me? And it has worked for me. That's the best thing ever happened to me. And you all stop using it as an excuse. If I disagree with you, I disagree with you because all of us, you and I, are entitled to our own opinion.
Okay.
Not our own facts.
All
So
right.
please desist from it. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Miss Henry. Just a point. I understand that we will not always agree on opinions and topics that are being discussed, but I do not agree with us, and I'll use this word not loosely. I know everybody calling with their views and opinions. Some might be political, some might be something to the point that some of us do not agree with. But try not let us descend into madness that where we criticize and bash people for their particular view. So let's just be respectful to each other, and let us stick to the point. Let us argue the topic at hand, and just let us be happy with each other. I mean, it's a democratic society, and we are entitled to our opinions, but just not criticize each other and bash each other. Go back to the phone line. Caller, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I just would like to say, it's not America that is exerting the most power or authority in the other countries. It is the Vatican City, right? The Vatican City. That's the one that is controlling this world system. And we are entitled to our own opinions. We are entitled to our own facts. But we are not entitled to our own truth. No one can change the truth. We can always twist facts, and we can always twist opinions. That's it for today.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, yes, as I was saying, we would not always agree. I may have one view, you may have another view, but let us articulate our views, our points, our opinions, and just stick to that. Maybe we can disagree with what somebody is saying, and you may want to put over your point, articulate your point, but we do not have to continue to bash each other and I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but we'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. We'll hear from our partner, SL Horsford and Company Limited.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM. This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back here on Voices. We go straight to the phone lines. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jermine.
Good afternoon, caller.
Jermine, I listen to Sylvie and many radio talk show. And she, to me, she just tried to educate more than anything else. People might get her like she political. She might get she little because she's a human being. She might get she little political support who she support. She's a human being. And I do not say she's perfect with everything she say and everything she do. You understand? But I believe a lot of people in this federation, even you, just listen to her because She is an educator. She works in all kind of department in the government. And if she says she's a Christian, she's a Christian. She follows the Christian life. You understand? And I believe that if she says something that one of her sisters don't agree with, I do not think she should have come on so passionate and attack her like that with what she said. You understand? Everybody got a voice to their opinion. You understand? And to believe what they want to believe. And just talking like that and saying this and saying that, I don't think it is fair. You know, Sylvie is a woman, you say anything about her, she will never say it. Before she come back and she correct you. She will never come back and say nothing negative about you. You understand? I listened upon different radio talk shows. And some of the radio talk show hosts give her a very hard time. Even cutting when she's talking, cut her off and all those things. And she's strong. She still stand up to them. You understand? So I believe if you say you're a Christian and you're Christian person, whatever comments Sylvie make about America, I do not believe that lady should have come on so passionate and attack Sylvie like that. You understand? But Abel, I continue to listen to the program.
All right, thanks, Colin. Well, I will say this again. We'll go and hear just now from St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, with regards to his country's his territory's plan to reopen the borders and put systems in place. But just before I go, I'll just remind people again, let us have a cordial discussion surrounding issues that are making news nationally, regionally, that can have implications on us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Descending into madness again is not something I support, and I've said it time and time again on this program. I do not agree with anybody bashing anybody here, and I really don't tolerate that here. But we'll go now and hear from Mr. Gonsalves, Dr. Gonsalves, about what he's doing there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And if we have time, we'll take one or two callers before we wrap the program.
There is something which I spoke to the Attorney General's office yesterday, and which I'm hoping to get support for from the cabinet today. Is this? It's a compliance issue.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. We'll go and get that. Start from the top again and hear from Dr. Gonsalves.
There is something which I spoke to the Attorney General's office yesterday, and which I'm hoping to get support for from the cabinet today. Is this? It's a compliance issue. There are some persons, and I guess it's part of human nature, but maybe it's out of a misplaced sense of comfort, that you come back, either you're tested negative, you brought a PCR which you're tested negative, or you don't know the results of your test yet and you're supposed to stay at least 24 hours. That you decide you're going by the supermarket, you're going by the village shop in Sandy Bay or Bentley or Barley. Look, we can't have that. In New York State, more than likely you're paying attention to what Governor Cuomo is saying. More than likely, if you're in New York City, you're paying attention to what Mayor de Blasio is saying. Well, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, pay attention to the authorities here now. Don't feel that because you come from foreign, that somehow you can ignore what the authorities are saying here, or that you feel complacent because we don't have any active cases. And we haven't had any for quite a long time until these 6 persons who are isolated. Now, what I'm going to take to cabinet, and I raised it with Simone Kiza Beach, Chief Medical Officer. Just like we ticket people for certain offenses in traffic offenses, we should start the process of ticketing, amend the Public Health Act. Don't know if I could get it in time for next week, Thursday, in Parliament. That you're supposed to be under quarantine and you're on the road. The medical officer or persons authorized by him, and you can list them, the offices of persons authorized by him, or the police, can give you a ticket. It may well be the Attorney General's chambers may well advise, well, we can keep the ticket at a particular level. First offense, $500. I'm just calling a number. Second one, within a particular time period, $1,000. Or depending on if the circumstances are such that you're entirely recalcitrant, to take it before the court, let the court do something more than just that. You may say, well, Ralph, these persons who come from overseas, you find them, you give the ticket. Suppose they just leave. Well, there are two ways to do that. You can have as soon as the ticket information is entered, you could enter it on in the information system at the airport, so that you think you're all right, but you ain't pay it. You come in and it comes up. They say, hey, you ain't pay your ticket. What happened? You can't go. Or hold your passport until you pay it. There are various enforcement measures can be used. Because I tell you something, I understand that Governor Cuomo has just unveiled a whole package. I was reading about it and people were in touch with me from New York, including particular kinds of some hefty ticket fines. So those who are leaving St. Vincent, who don't want to obey Roger Duncan, Dr. Duncan here, or Simone Kiza, or who think Ralph talking foolishness, when they go through Miami and go into New York, when they reach back to New York, if they do a series of things, including giving wrong information, understand you could be ticketed, I have to confirm this, up to $2,000. Because what has happened, what has given us some difficulties in contact tracing, and we have to go underground. There are some people, out of the numbers, I think Simone told me, and I'm open to be corrected and think, I think the number she told me was 24 persons. Either didn't give any telephone number or gave a wrong telephone number. Now, I could do that. So we have to ensure compliance. I don't want to turn any normal citizen of whichever country, and certainly not ours, into somebody who is dragged in by the police or anything like that. You know, I want us to have moral suasion, and that's the way a small country like this could address it. Because I tell you this, if they don't do that, our people are listening to what I'm saying. I'm talking about Vincentians, those who are here listening to me, and what they're doing. And many persons who have come in are finding that even their friends are saying, don't come by me. Stay away from me. There are persons who go to a bar or a restaurant. Persons are leaving. They say, oh, that person come from thing, they're gone. Because the public, we have gone through addressing this first. The public have come to the settled view that we have to manage this risk very well, the risk of COVID, and that, okay, we mustn't have excessive fear and we mustn't have any hysteria, but we got to treat it seriously. And one of the best ways is for us to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. So our people are, if you think that you're going to disregard the authorities, our people ain't disregarding the authorities, you know. They're going to shun you. I don't really want any kind of a shunning to be done just because a person has had or maybe testing positive now for COVID. I don't want any discrimination on those kinds of grounds. But you yourself, each of us, has to be reasonable. And that's why there are persons in the country who are telling their friends, don't come by me. There's some who say, listen, you go in church, I ain't come in church. All I'm asking is for us to just comply. But if it means that we have to strengthen the law to ensure compliance, that you feel it inside of your pocket. Because as the law is, the police can come and take you to the court, and the magistrate can do this. But maybe to save a lot of manpower, maybe we should introduce a ticketing system. And I've spoken to the Attorney General's office yesterday about this matter, and I'm going to canvass the cabinet today on it and to see how the AG's chambers fashion the details for efficacious implementation. That is so far on the protocols. There are other things, but I'm just dealing with the ones which concern people, which people will talk about, and to allay the fears of reasonable persons. Now, there are those who say, Comrade Ralph, man, don't let any of them planes they come in. How can we keep out our nationals who want to come home? And once we open to bring our nationals, we have to bring tourists too. But we have to make sure that the same protocols apply. Experiences and make amendments to the protocols as we go along. I just want to say, I've given instructions to hire even more nurses. We are strengthening the labs. We are hiring other persons for the labs, 4 Cubans who have skills in the laboratory work for PCRs. Technical people, I think they're coming on Friday. So we are beefing up many of these areas, and you can rely on us to address these. And And I listened carefully. And in the cacophony of voices, I find right reason. Look at the facts. Look at the law. Look at the bedrock principles of governance. And fashion a proper way forward without complacency on the one hand and without hysteria on the other. Now, the protocols have shown that there is from the 1st of August, we're going to have what is called a CARICOM bubble. Those from certain listed CARICOM countries, not every one of them. For instance, Haiti is not in the bubble. Guyana is not in the bubble because I think they have community spread in Guyana. But the other countries are in the bubble. That is to say that those persons, when they come in, wouldn't have, from the 1st of August, wouldn't have to do a PCR test. You do the observation, you do the temperature checks, and so on and so forth. Because all these places more or less have an epidemiological profile, which is low risk. And to facilitate interregional travel. I mean, going from Georgetown to Kingston would be about the way of going from Kingston to Bridgetown. And having made that point, on Sunday, One Caribbean is up and running out of the blocks. The first of the airlines to do regular scheduled flights since Liat last came through the sub-region on March the 29th. They went St. Lucia to Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. And no one is immune from the protocols. I just want to say this. Of course, from the particular date in August the 1st, there'd be the CARICOM bubble. And I think they went out on Monday. I don't know if they went yesterday. I think it's 4 days a week they're doing at the moment. And in another 10 days or so, they're going to start to do other flights to other, as far up as Dominica, I understand. I saw SVGA on Friday. They tell me that later this week, and they will announce. And in fact, they were thinking of moving on Wednesday to go down to Grenada and maybe even do a Barbados flight. I've been in touch with Ronnie Mohammed, the chair of Caribbean Airlines. In fact, I spoke to him yesterday. And he used to send me the schedule. He says that in another week or so, they should begin to do runs in our part of the world, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia. They are already doing the Barbados, Jamaica, Havana run, Jamaica, Havana. And so it's opening up, bit by bit. And then inter-Caribbean, I have this week again, Mr. Gardner, the head of inter-Caribbean out of Turks and Caicos, was in touch with me, and I told him that the director of airports, that she's involved in processing their request for permission to enter St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to do their air service, their airline service, and that the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority has been informed. And shortly, I would expect that the Director of Airport Services would advise me on on what the Air License and Transport Board is doing.
Well, there you had it. There you had it. That was an excerpt of some of what CARICOM Chairman Dr. Ralph Gonzalez said this morning. But we'll go to the phone lines now as we bring the curtains down on Voices. Caller, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Abel.
Good afternoon.
I would say that drastic times call for drastic measures, and one has to do what it has to do. It's somewhat ironic, though, maybe because every entity, every region, particular state in the OECS or the wider CARICOM might take different approach, but it would have been somewhat more uniformity to see that we move together to really combat this, because one success, we can extrapolate from one success, but in regions like ours, we need to do it in a comprehensive way. But albeit be that as it may, there are measures that different governments will take to really safeguard their people. Life is paramount. I've listened to your conversation earlier, and time is of the essence now. But I will glean from anyone who has come forth and say things that would really be beneficial to the education of the nation. And I had listened to this course earlier with Mrs. Henry, Mother Sylvain Henry, and yes, the United States is physical. I listened to the other lady, and yes, the Vatican is behind the scene. For the simple fact that the Vatican don't have a military army like that, they might have it on a different echelon in terms of the hierarchical system, the way how the system is governed. Yes, both the Vatican and the United States and other entities will exercise and flex their muscles. I also listened to Mrs. Henry about the United States really wanting to get into Guyana. Of course, who wouldn't want to get into Guyana with all of the oil or the gas reserves that are there? And so we are in the midst of war. It's an all-out war on all fronts. And our people hasn't gotten it. We have gotten complacent, And guess what? Maybe we're not seeing any death from the Christina disaster 50 years ago. Apart from that, we have seen our youth died on the street sporadically.
Okay, caller.
We, our people have not gotten it, that life is precious and we need to do everything to safeguard life.
Caller, 30 seconds. We have to break shortly for working for you.
That's basically what I have to say for now. Next time I'll expound more on other matters.
Okay, sure, no problem. We have the show again tomorrow, so do call
Thank
in.
you, yes. I'll continue the conversation. Thanks.
Okay. Well, yes, it's just about the end of Voices for today. I was your host, Jermine Abel. We have working for you coming up shortly, so we'll connect with them as soon as they get started. But today we had an interesting discussion on the reopening of the borders, the concern with regards to fraudulent documents being presented as a concern for visitors and returning nationals across the region, and basically from the example of what we learned from the Bahamas, as well as we just heard from Ralph Gonzalez there. But we have to bring the curtains down on the program for today. Do join us again tomorrow around 11, thereabout, for another edition of Voices here on Win FM. I was your host, Jermine Abel, and do stay tuned. We have interesting programming, news and sports at 6, and working for you at just about after Voices here on Win FM.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that.